But, you know, some things surprise me, but yet they don't surprise me. I want to read. Let me pull it up first. You have a call? Yeah, let's take the call. Stacey. Yeah, hello, good night. Hello? Hello, good night. Stacey? That call is outside, you know. Hello, good night. Okay. Well, we'll wait for the call, and we'll move on and take the call when it comes. This is an article I read on Eyewitness News by Jomo Thomas. The biggest story of the 2020 budgetary debate went virtually unnoticed. Every citizen should be outraged, angry, and demand correction, punishment even. But alas, only a few persons caught the importance of the revelations. Not many appeared bothered. The big story was not Daniel Cummins' charge that the government allowed a tourist ship with passengers possibly afflicted with the deadly coronavirus to enter Port Kingstown because it wants to boost its cruise ship arrival numbers. Nor was it Camilo Gonzalez's voyages of a pothole tourist. Parody of opposition leader Godwin Friday in his closing budgetary address, or the declaration that an NDP government will refurbish and light all the nation's parks and hard courts, as well as provide for a national stadium for our athletes. And surely it was not Camilo's delivery of a $1 billion budget or eclipsing his father as an eloquent orator. Now, the person who is writing this, I will go back and read who he is. It says, Jomo Sanga Thomas is a lawyer, a journalist, a social commentator, and Speaker of the House of Assembly in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. No, it was none of those. The biggest story was that the government had routinely violated statutory law and the Constitution by not adhering to the legal demands relating to overdraft limits. The legal limits set for government overdraft currently stands at $50 million. Government gets this authority according to the Financial Administration Act. However, over the last decade, the government borrowed way above the $50 million limit. In 2014, the government borrowed as much as $83 million. Of critical importance is that whenever the government exceeded its overdraft limits, it never seeks Parliament's approval for the excess borrowing. But that was not all. The government compounded its illegal, this is not quoting Friday, this is Jomo Sanga Thomas interpreting what Friday was saying and repeating it here. The government compounded its illegal, unconstitutional actions by engaging in another illegality. It created an accountant general loan at the Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and hid the entire transaction from the Parliament and by extension the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The overdraft is a facility intended to tide the government over as the national demands require. But this is not to be short term. No more. This is to be short term. No more than 12 months. However, when the overdraft is not paid and the balance is turned into a loan at one of the commercial banks, the government simply and routinely exceeds its budgetary and legal limits and creates even greater public debt problems for the country. This is a commentary by Jomo Sanga Thomas, the Speaker of the House of Assembly, a lawyer, a socialist, journalist, everything else that they say he is. Fundamentally, these acts are in clear violation of the Finance Administration Act and by extension our nation's constitution. When this explosive charge was leveled against the government by the opposition leader in the response to the budgetary, one naturally sat in a state of surprise and wonderment. The hope was that for PM Gonsalves and or our Finance Minister Camilo to forcefully refute these statements by the opposition. But alas, there was no denial. And he went on in a stamina testing 4-hour address, as though priming for another election battle. PM Gonsalves took citizens on a 20-year journey that compared his tenure to what came before during the opposition's 17-year rule. Not once did he touch the issue of illegal borrowing allegations hurled at the government by the opposition leader. In his closing address on the 2020 budget, Finance Minister Camilo Gonsalves failed to explain, rationalize, apologize for, or refute the charges regarding the government's illegal actions and fiscal irresponsibility. The closest he got to showing any form of contrition was his genuflection to the opposition regarding the government's request to lift the special warrants limit from 25 to 35 million. He promised, as he did during the October 2019 debate, not to be so tardy with bringing special warrants to Parliament for discussion and approval. This is not the first time the government was found to be acting outside the law. This is not the first time the government acts as though it will not be constrained by the law. Last September, opposition leader parliamentarian Sinclair Leacock asked the government to list and itemize all the special warrants it issued in the previous 5 years. In October 2019, special warrants spanning 2013 to 2018 were brought before the Parliament. We learned then that in more than one instance, government exceeded the limit of 25 million. In that debate, PM Gonsalves acknowledged the transgression and proclaimed that exceeding the special warrant limit, the government had not committed a hanging offence. Now, before we start jumping all over ourselves, this is not a partisan issue. All citizens of whatever political color should be concerned, at the very least. This is by all respects a serious national issue of great importance. People, this is serious stuff. If government could so willy-nilly disregard legal requirements, are there other illegal actions that have not yet been disclosed? What other illegal acts will it be prepared to do in the dark, quiet halls of power? We cannot encourage or condone illegality or misbehavior in office by any government minister or the government itself. Every 5 years we go to the polls and elect a government. Those elected swore to uphold the laws and to conduct public affairs in keeping with the laws. Moreover, this is a government that touts law and order as a major plank of its rule. It cites Transparency International, which rates St. Vincent and the Grenadines high on the list of transparent government. In his address, Gonsalves told the nation that he was the lyrical master. Well, we must demand that lyrics are not selectively dropped. The lyrics of national affairs must be wholesome, truthful, and legal. We must develop a democracy that is anchored in laws and not the power or guile of men. The law clearly requires the government to seek parliamentary approval by resolution or other legal acts. To do as it did clearly fly in the face of requirements of good governance, best practice of transparency and accountability. How are we to view the violation of the special warrants and overdraft facility and the sleight of hand way government turned the excess of the overdraft limit into an illegal government loan? This is not a laughing matter, because it relates to the violation of both statutory law and the Constitution. Given a chance, this government may be inclined to do as it pleases. The people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines must not allow. Jomo Thomas is a lawyer, journalist, social commentator, and Speaker of the House of Assembly in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The views expressed herein are those of the writer, and not necessarily represent the opinions or editorial position of Eyewitness News. Opinion pieces can be submitted to news.eyewitness@gmail.com. Now, that disclaimer at the end of it, reading this, I will say this is not written by the Speaker of the House of Assembly. Can't be. But there is a disclaimer. And the disclaimer says, this is not eyewitness story. When I read it first, I thought it was eyewitness story. But this is Jomo Thomas, journalist, lawyer, social commentator, and Speaker of the House of Assembly, commenting on the debate in Parliament. Now, 4 days of budget debate. Started Monday afternoon, Monday night with the presentation of the budget, and report and debate right up until Thursday night. And the Speaker of the House sat there for all of those 4 days, except for a break every now and again, so that Jomo believed Friday hook, line, and sinker. Jomo obviously was enthralled, was overwhelmed by Friday's presentation. I rubbished Friday in the House. The Speaker heard me rubbishing Friday. I told him he was out of his depth. He didn't know what he was talking about fluctuating overdraft, ending at the end of the year. So that at the end of the year, the government must clear the overdraft of $50 million. So I appealed to Leacock. I said, Leacock, come on, man. The man is out of his depth. You should be talking on this subject matter. I don't know if Friday has never operated an overdraft in his life. He is saying that by law, that it must end on the 31st. An overdraft is a fluctuating overdraft. It goes up, it comes down. The bank sometimes, you have a limit, while the law says that is 50 million. There are certain things that could happen where you go to the bank and the bank says, okay, you have this to do. Let us do it by way of overdraft, as long as you continue to operate within the authorized limits of the House of Parliament. The overdraft doesn't stand by itself. The whole borrowing of the government, and I will read something on it for you just now, is authorized at the Parliament. So if you go over, the bankers will say to you, look, we cannot go beyond this because you are outside of the authority that was given to you in Parliament. At no time have we exceeded that authority. Other resolutions allow us to borrow. The last time is up to $100 million. The overdraft is part of the borrowing. So if you exceed by 10 million, 8 million, $7 million, you therefore cannot borrow up to the maximum that is authorized by the Parliament. But the banker, knowing your level of authority, it's like you go in and representing a company to negotiate an overdraft. He says, do the shareholders know that you are negotiating this? What is the authorized limit that the shareholders have put on you to borrow as in an overdraft? Or as loans? So I rubbished him. But the Speaker of the House obviously didn't clearly understand or is far removed from the subject area. I think the latter is the correct one. Because for him to swallow this hook, line, and sinker, to go and make the comments in the manner in which he has on Facebook, writing for Eyewitness News, because Kenton Chan say, listen, this ain't me that write this article, This is the Speaker of the House of Assembly who sat there and listened to 4 days of debate. And this is the highlight of the budget debate. So Jomo is like a little child now, going to school and hearing somebody who is supposed to be impressive or supposed to be in a good position fell victim to the nonsense that Friday was presented in Parliament. And as I say that, Jomo repeated the figures that Friday gave, saying that we had a $50 million overdraft limit and we went as high as $83 million at the end of the year, which is a lie. But Jomo, so anxious. I don't know why he's so anxious. Wait till you come out the house. Now you don't come out the house. You don't declare that you're giving up. You say last Parliament you're resigning. Well, I can only assume that you have your resignation written already and that you feel that you are no longer Speaker of the House. So therefore, I can speak in this manner and I accept the Leader of the Opposition word over this. But I want to read you this. Let me just pull up what I have here. Where is it? Right here. Those of you who sent me WhatsApp messages, I'll look at them just now. All right, let's go. Let me turn it sideways so the print will be bigger and I could read it for you. Okay. These are overdraft balances from 2010 to 2019. And the years that Friday was talking about was, I believe, 15, 16 or 17, somewhere around there. Or you may have even mentioned 2014. In 2014, the authorized overdraft limit was $50 million. The overdraft balance at the end of September of that year was $60,389,000. And at the end of December was $60,584,000. 2015, $50 million limit. As at September, it was $71 million. And at December, it was $60 million and 56. In 2016, $50 million limit. In September, it was $68,865,000. And 31st of December, it was $55,814,000. 2017, $73 million, same $50 million limit, $72,360,000 at September. At the end of December, $27,714,000. 2018, $46 million out of the 50,606 at September 30th. And at December, $39,575,000. And in 2019, $50 million overdraft, $30,225,000 at September, and $30,225,000, yes, at the end of December. So that for all those years, in 2010, there was a $75 million limit. In September and December of that year, we never got to that limit. It was under the limit. In 2011, it was 75 million authorized, 34 million and 29 million. And then in 2012, we had carried it to 35. It went to 40 and 41. But the idea being, if you exceed the limit, Friday continued to say, which is where I rubbished him, that at the end of the 31st of December, you must have it paid off. That is not how an overdraft operates. Not how it is. The overdraft, which is authorized by a resolution of the House, is renewable annually. It is therefore not expected that the government would liquidate its overdraft in full at the close of each fiscal year. And I asked Likak, I said, Likak, please talk to the man. He don't know what he's talking about. In fact, it is standard banking practice to roll over an overdraft once the credit review process does not reveal any significant deterioration in the financial conditions of the entity. Those of you who operate businesses and operate overdraft, you know this is how an overdraft is done. Be it private business or government. No administration has ever been known to fully pay off the overdraft balance at the end of any fiscal year. None. No government. In the operation of the facility, the government ensures that the balance fluctuates in a manner consistent with a well-functioning overdraft arrangement. You call it a fluctuating overdraft. So you have a limit. You may go down to $30 million. When you get in some money and then you have a lot of things to pay, you go back up, you go to the bank and say, listen, I have some bills here to pay. It's a little bit over the 50 million, 5 million over the limit, and I will give me a couple of weeks with it. By the end of the week, we're going to be getting back this money in, and it will come back down. That is what an overdraft is all about. There is never, ever a call to eliminate that and pay that off at the end of the year. Now, converting overdraft to loan without approval, which Jomo says and believes Friday that this is an illegal act by the government. But as I just explained to you, if the authority of the government in total out of the budget, including the amount authorized to borrow by another resolution and another act, the act in this year was $100 million. The resolution authorizing the government to access funds by way of fluctuating overdraft also permits the government to convert a portion of the overdraft to a loan if it deems it necessary to do so. The wording of the resolution runs as follows, and Prime Minister dealt with some of this on Facebook on Views and Issues last week. Be it resolved that this Honourable House do authorize the Minister of Finance to borrow by means of fluctuating overdraft or otherwise. That's in the total. It is therefore not correct to say that such borrowing is not authorized by law. Remember, Jomo is a lawyer, eh? Jomo is a journalist. Jomo is a socialist. Socialist, I think that's what they say. Jomo is the Speaker of the House of Assembly. But he swallowed this hook, line, and sinker. In any event, the Annual Loan Act authorizes borrowing of $100 million. So if you go over a little bit on the overdraft, you just reduce the amount of borrowing that you do in loans to make sure you do not exceed that. And there's not the proof to show that we have exceeded that. In fact, the bankers will not allow you to, I hear them ponging the bankers in Vincent and the Grenadines. Ponging the bankers in Vincent and the Grenadines. They are the ones, and we said it early in our administration, early, in opposition. The crown jewel of this country will be made available to Vincentians to own shares in the bank. We never hid that intention. We campaigned on it every single election until such time that we carried out the act in 2010. Just before the 2010 election, and everybody they predicted, oh, you sell with the bank, you give with the bank, you will lose the election. The people gain confidence in the government for that act. All levels of Vincentians today own shares in the Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Never before has a government given them that opportunity. Buy shares in this, buy a treasury bill, buy a bond. No, give them ownership of the crown jewel. Right now it's called the Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and doing very well. Minister of Finance and the Prime Minister has repeatedly given the success story of the Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And those of us, I include myself, I'm a proud owner of shares of the Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I know public servants who work in my ministry at junior level who own shares in the Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So don't go out there and say, well, Julian Francis owns shares and he's minister, that's why he owns shares. Check the registry, check the bank and see who all. Go to the annual general meeting of the Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and listen to the report. Get the report of the Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. See what percentage of ordinary Vincentians NIS owns on behalf of the people of this country a lot of shares too. But the whole truth about it, Friday come there and lie. Friday does not do his homework. Still see how we stand with cause, no? Okay, everybody listening. Friday does not do his homework. Friday is not fit to be leader of this country. Friday is not Prime Minister material. You don't come to Parliament and make them kind of statements. He said we illegally transferred the overdraft into a consolidated overdraft loan. As if it's something new. This is not a creature of the Unity Labour Party, you know. Yes. So that Friday coming now and convincing Jomo that the Unity Labour Party illegally transferred the money. And further, I mean, I want you all to go. I mean, I read through the whole article. But you all must go and read this thing and see the venom. The venom written into this article by Jomo Thomas. I mean, a fella could have certain things in the crowd. But good Lord, you not even step out of the House of Parliament yet. You done gone on this tirade. Friday has convinced you. You swallow everything Friday, say? Well, I'll shock you tonight. Because the Unity Labour Party administration did not invent the matter of consolidated overdraft loan. The New Democratic Party did it. And I will read them for you. Do your homework, Jomo Sanga Thomas, before you go out and write nonsense and swallow the nonsense that comes from Friday. If Friday is the leader that you are listening to, and you believe in what he's saying without doing your research, you're a man who always say that you do your research. Every day you open the Facebook page, you are there with a quotation from an international, regional, all sorts of writers. A quotation without even a commentary, just quotation. Good Lord, do the same research. Don't come out here and make a fool of yourself and write with such anger and malice on this matter. And calling the regime, wondering what other illegal things we will do in the halls of power, in the dark halls of power. That is a damning statement, Jomo. And you have no evidence, no support. You got hooked by Friday. Obviously, you're very enthralled by Friday. You love the dirt that the man walks on. For you to sit there for 4 days, listen to 4 hours of Friday, and say that this is the feature of the budget debate. Not Ralph Gonzalez, not Julian Francis, not Camilo Gonzalez, not Saboto Caesar, not Luke Brown. Let's take the call. Let's take a call, please. Hello, good night.
Good night, sir.
Good night.
Good night, how are you doing?
I'm good. I
know I shouldn't ask you that because I don't like people ask me that.
You could hear from my tone that I'm good.
Yes, I know you're good. You're on a roll there. This guy, Mr. Thomas, you see, a whole bunch of people went after me. But I don't understand why they went after me in the first place. Because Jomo was acting out of line from the jump.
Yep.
Now, here he is tonight, last week, swallowing hook, line, and sinker what Friday put out, and Friday obviously don't have a clue what he's talking about.
Yep.
And talking now, the comment about what other illegal thing the party may have done.
Yes.
What you say, in night? Well, here's something. Jomo Thomas has never declared to the country whether or not he is an American citizen. And if Jomo is an American citizen, it is illegal for him to be in the parliament.
Yeah.
And furthermore,
that is a John B running. That's a John B running from, eh?
Yeah. And furthermore, Friday, there is no doubt anywhere established the latest set of cases in Guyana that Friday, you want to talk about illegal? Friday is in the parliament illegally. There's no doubt about that. Yeah. None.
But here it is, Frank. Here it is, Frank.
Yes.
Here it is. 1996 estimates and budget. Right? I'm looking at the matter of public debt. 1996, you know. Who was in government? NDP. NDP.
Yes.
On page 91 of those estimates. Under loans. Here the first loan. Consolidated overdraft loan. $22,261,781. As far back as 1996. That is why I said just now, we did not create that terminology.
And who was the fiscal advisor at the time?
Annem Eustace, I believe. 1996.
Yes, he came in 1994 as fiscal advisor.
Exactly.
So he advised them.
I have a
never spoke about that.
I have a 1997, Frank. And if you check all the estimates from 1996 and the budget, you will see again here in 1997 consolidated overdraft loan. 26,615,334. So it is a natural creature for a government. You have exceeded, you have a hard base in your overdraft. It's not reducing to the level that you wish. You say, all right, let us consolidate this into a loan. I will pay you every month to reduce that. And give me the limit on my overdraft. And I will make sure that I service the loan and keep the overdraft fluctuating properly within the limits authorized by Parliament. Not the overdraft limit alone, but the entire borrowing. So you convert it into loans and still have your overdraft limit.
I listened to Friday and I was wondering how come that overdraft ain't $1 billion, because if you listen to him, that was the impression he was given.
But Jomo swallowed it Frank, Jomo swallowed it so much that he repeated the figure that Friday said of $83 million at the end of the year, and that is not so.
Oh my God.
And he's the first to reprimand people and call people out of place and bright and dotish and backward.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, you would notice if he really did any research,
yes,
you think he would have come and tell us that he's a descendant of Mansa Musa or whatever the guy is? You think he would have told us that? A man who owned slaves? My God.
All right, Frank. Good, cool. Yes, so when I appealed to Leacock, and the speaker heard me, I know he heard me because he looked at me. I said, Leacock, talk to the man out of his depth. Leacock shake his head from left to right, as if, boy, what you want me to do? What you want me to do? If the man feel he could talk on this subject, let talk on the subject. But Leacock knew, and maybe the only one on that side who might really understand that Friday was talking rubbish. Because the evidence is there that a consolidated overdraft loan is not illegal. Once you are not borrowing outside of the maximum limit, not just you can convert part of your overdraft into the loan structure that you have. And Jomo swallowed that hook, line, and sinker. But the gentleman maybe no longer Speaker of the House and he feels free. But what worries me, what concerns me, is that Jomo, the meticulous, supposedly meticulous man that he is, will go and write to this extent without doing his research. And in particular, what I just said to you, that in 1996, the New Democratic Party established what was a consolidated overdraft loan and ran right up to 1998-2000. In fact, there are lots of other things when you go through these estimates that disappeared into other things. But it all shows that within the authority of the Parliament is money management. And somebody has described it as that. Proper, serious money management. You have to know what you can do, how you can get it done, and so on. So I make absolutely no apology for my broadside on this tonight. Because I felt it when Friday was talking. I was really, really shocked to know that the Speaker of the House of Assembly after 4 days of debate, will say that this is the highlight. And let me read back what he said about that matter. I want to repeat it because I want them to tape it. I want them to tape it because some of them may read it. Prime Minister, when he was on saved, I have it saved. It's all right. Let me go for it, man. In regular, but who's that thing saved? You know. Yeah, look at right here. And he labeled it explosive outtakes from budget debate. And he said the big story is not Daniel Cummins. Let me open it in Samsung. Yeah, that's the phone I have. How are we to view this violation? Oh, before that. Yes, this part here. People, this is serious stuff, you know. If governments could so willy-nilly disregard legal requirements, are there other illegal actions that have not yet been disclosed? I'm not a lawyer. What other illegal acts will it be prepared to do in the dark, quiet halls of power? I mean, this is strong language, you know, man. Strong language. We cannot condone or encourage or condone illegality and or misbehavior in office by any government minister or the government. Every 5 years we go to the polls and elect a government. Those elected swore to uphold the laws and to conduct public affairs in keeping with the laws. Huh? And then up here he said, this is not the first time the government was found outside of the law. Last time with the special warrants and so on. We learned then that in one instant that now we start jumping all over the place. This is another illegal act. He said it somewhere up here. Let me get it. Let me pull it back down. Of critical importance is that the government exceeded its overdraft limit. The government compounded its illegal, unconstitutional actions by engaging in another illegality. It created an accountant general loan at the Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and hid the entire transaction from the Parliament. And by extension, the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It is in the estimates and not hidden. I mean, how could this man, who is supposed to be so meticulous, so correct at all times, make these damning statements? The people will be the judge. I thought I should spend some time on that tonight. I can take your calls now. I know you've been listening because you wanted to hear it on it. So if you want to call now. Do you see any calls coming in? All right. Now, this New Democratic Party has been all about the place having political meetings. Dozens of them. Every nook and cranny. 5 people listening, 6 people, 10 people, 12 people, the most I ever seen. Well, let me put it this way. I can't see. Because you only keep the camera on. Because remember, it's Nice Radio really carrying all of them. They hand picking who they're carrying on Nice Radio. But they have it on social media, on Facebook. But the camera is always only on the speaker. You hardly see who the numbers are. But I get my reports. Lavon, don't get worked up. Jomo has no credibility when it comes to politics. Jomo run back for any constituency in this country, get 25 votes. And more so if you run for the Unity Labour Party, which we will not even consider. If Jomo go back in South Leeward, the people will stone him off of the platform. I put it to you. Jomo is a spend force in politics. if he thinks by this approach that the NDP will consider him as a candidate, I dare them to bring him as a candidate. Jomo has lost, whatever. I mean, all it gonna cost me. But I was one of the fellas who agreed, to run Jomo. No question about it. I call it a mistake, but I say, well, on reflection, we could have do something better. But now, good Lord, man, mother hawk. Yeah, so I was saying that the NDP all over the place. You have another call coming? Let's go with the cause. I've been talking for a long time. Come on, guys, come on. Hello, good night.
Senator Francis?
Yes, my dear.
Little query.
Yes.
That, those balances that you were giving out there with the overdraft.
Yes, please.
Is the leader of the opposition entitled to see the bank records belonging to the government?
Every time we have Parliament, they ask us for information. We don't give the actual figures, but I'm sure he is leader of the Public Accounts Committee. And if he's going to make a public statement on these matters, he has the power under that to call and ask for information, or call a meeting of the Public Accounts Committee and ask for the information on the government borrowings to be brought to him.
I see, all right. Now,
based on reports from the Director of Audit and so on and whatnot. So he can get the information. If he calls and asks what's the overdraft limit, I doubt they will refuse from giving him.
To make up
to make up the figure. Or he called somebody and got some wrong figure. You know what I mean? But
number two little query. Not a query.
But you worked in a bank, didn't you?
Oh yes, and I know that on two different occasions, the government salaries were not paid because they were exceeding the overdraft limit.
Yes.
I happen to know that.
Yes.
Even though who came to the rescue, that is not my business. but the thing is that those things were happening since back then.
Yes.
What I think is getting on the nerves of the NDP is that sentence everybody uses. Every end of the month, the civil servants get paid. Not one single soul can ever say they didn't get paid at the end of it. It grates on their nerves.
I agree with you. Really, and why is that so? Why is that so? Because of proper money management. So if your overdraft is at the max and you are high up at salary time, you go to the bank and you say, well, listen, we have a bit on the tight side, but we have to pay salaries. You need to carry me over the limit for 10 million, and let's put 20 million of this onto a consolidated loan. It's still within my borrowing powers, and I can pay my salaries. It's called money management.
I think it gets to them. It gets to them that it has never happened. What is getting to them is the honest and blemishless reputation that the ULP has as a government.
And Miss Harold, in looking at these estimates in 1996, these fellows were borrowing at 11%?
Yeah.
But you've been there. At 11% they were borrowing money, All the overdrafts, they have overdraft here for Banana Authority, $13 million. You have Arut, Sugar, they carry those loans. And then they convert them. They carry them as overdraft too.
I find that the article does not really sound like Mr. Thomas anyhow.
Well, that's what I said,
After that man called Kenton Chance, I do not like the way he demands answers when he goes to press conference.
Yes.
He don't ask him no polite question. I would by now if I was the Prime Minister, would have told him long time ago, you address your question to somebody else and let them ask me.
Yes, but
I can't stand this tone of voice.
When I read the article, I said this is Kenton's writing. But when I saw the disclaimer at the bottom, and Jomo being declared the writer, I said, well, Kenton write this for Jomo?
Or somebody else.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Something wrong all the road. Okay,
all right, okay, cool. Yes. Where Jomo in his article say, not even the statement by Daniel Cummins in Parliament. I read it for you tonight. And Jomo place that as less important than the lies and fabrication and stupidness and rubbish that Friday spoke. And that's another part of it that disappointed me. Where he himself, he himself asked the member to have it withdrawn when I insisted and quoted the section. Jomo himself said in Parliament that he thought it was an unnecessary statement and it must be withdrawn because everybody was talking around it. I went to the rules, I found the section, and I said, Mr. Speaker, I demand a withdrawal by the honourable member for West Kingstown. That is when, and Jomo did that. But he didn't think that was the highlight. The lies and rubbish that Friday was talking was the highlight for Jomo. Good Lord, man. And we have a nation that we are trying to protect.